Welcome back to BST, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me on yet another episode. Today, I wanted to talk about the men's basketball national championship. And let's just jump right into the game. They say you leave the best for last, and this is kind of what it felt like in this game. Florida ends up winning 65-63 over Houston. It was a great game. Absolutely great. Early on, it was close. And after halftime, I believe, Houston began to pull away a little bit. Got up to like 42-30, 12-point lead. But before you knew it, Florida had taken the lead back, and then it kind of bounced back and forth. And ultimately, Florida holds strong at the end. The last play was horrible. I don't even know what Houston was doing there. I feel like a lot of times in these games, it's just like, do you guys even draw up a play? It was really bad. I don't even know what the plan was. A lot of guys just standing around the 3-point line, not sure what to do. And then he tried to take a three, but then faked at the last second, but he left his feet, so the ball was just dribbling on the ground and rolling away from him, but he couldn't touch it or else the game is over. But Florida finally jumps on it, and the time expires. I thought, obviously, I was cheering for Florida in this game because I picked Florida in my bracket, which we'll get to in a minute, just reviewing it and reviewing March Madness as a whole. So I was cheering for Florida, and early on, like I said, down by 12, I did not think Florida would be able to come back. Probably their best player, Walter Clayton Jr., he was really bad in this game. If we look at the stats here, 3 for 10 with 11 points. That looks a lot better than the game felt. Obviously, he's had a great March. I think he's averaging around 24, 25 points a game during this tournament. So their best player, but he could not buy a bucket early on. And late in the game, he had a few clutch layups and a 3-ball. But overall, just not a great game from him. Also, Florida just turned over the ball a ton. It was really bad in that regard. I felt like all the time they were just turning the ball over. They finished with 13 turnovers, which Houston finishes with 9. But a lot of those came at the end. This was really just a Houston collapse. They were outplaying Florida for most of the game. And at the end, a lot of fouls in the second half. The officiating was all over the place. I thought a lot of fouls should not have been fouls. Interesting calls here or there. And like the first half really should not have been close either. I really thought Houston really outplayed them. Problem with Houston, they just couldn't hit a shot. If Houston came out on fire, I think Houston wins the national championship. But I thought they rebounded them in the first half. Obviously, the turnover margin was crazy, but it was like just the 3-ball especially would not fall. But, I mean, neither team shot well. But I felt like Houston was doing the other things better than Florida for the majority of the game, and they just couldn't hit their shots. And that allowed them to get back into it. So, I mean, it's crazy. I didn't think Houston would get to this point. I had them losing in either the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8. We will take a look at that in a second. So, I didn't think Houston was as good as Florida. So I'm happy Florida won, but yeah, it was a kind of a weird game. And I mean, Florida's been down in most of their games this tournament by a little, like a pretty big margin in some of these games. and they've been able to battle back, and now they're the national champions. I'm not a huge fan of their coach. I don't know. He seems kind of like a cheesy guy. I mean, I'm sure he's a nice dude, but I don't know. Sometimes the camera antics are a little much for me. But yeah, Florida wins the national championship. Congratulations to the Florida Gators, obviously, the fans. I didn't really know Florida would be this good coming in this year. Florida isn't really like a household name in basketball. Houston is obviously and has been for the past couple of years. So I didn't really know much about Florida coming in this year, but here they are now. And I think Walter Clayton is probably going to go to the NBA. So that should be interesting to see how that all pans out. Florida Gators 65, Houston Cougars 63 for the national championship and the end to March Madness. Now for my bracket. In my bracket group, I did finish first with an 89.3%, which I'm not really sure what exactly that means. But if any of you are on ESPN, I got 1,360 points, so you can kind of compare that to what your bracket says. That's ranked 2.7 millionth out of all their brackets, so not great in that regard. But from where I was within the first couple of games, I'm pretty proud of that. I had like a 20% bracket going out of the round of 32, I believe, which was pretty rough. So to finish here, I'm pretty proud of that. I think my biggest faults were picking. Let's see here, picking Houston to lose early. Not great. I had Gonzaga beating them in the round of 32, so that's not great. So, but I mean, it's super hard to pick. I personally didn't want to pick all one seeds. I know plenty. I just feel like you kind of have this like guilt inside of you when you pick all one seeds to make it to the Final Four, because you feel like there's gonna be upset, and I feel like that happened with a lot of people this year. I think a lot of people thought there'd be more upsets than there were, and there just wasn't. Some of the same upsets that we see in years past. We'll get to that next up. Just kind of talking about what we can learn from this bracket, and where it will be in the future. But overall, I like my bracket. It's probably one of the best ones I've ever done. But let's just keep going, moving on. Kind of what are my thoughts of like where this is going? Because I know a lot of people are worried, like, where was the madness this year? Because there really wasn't. I think in total there were like 4 true upsets, and 3 of them were in the round of 64. One was in the round of 32. That's not very exciting. Kind of disappointing. It felt like I mean, I was warned by multiple, like, quote unquote experts that this was going to be a very chalk bracket. And I mean, that's exactly what it was. We saw bits and pieces here of some surprising upsets, but overall, I mean, it was pretty chalk. And even if a team did upset, they didn't really go on a run. Because I mean, if you look at mine, I had multiple missed picks in the round of 64, round of 32, but mostly round of 64. I had multiple missed picks, but I think to win these bracket challenges, I mean, of course, it doesn't matter as much as just getting a perfect bracket or a good bracket, but it's just about picking who's going to be there. And it felt like those teams could get upsets, but then they go face the 1, 2, or 3 seed. They're probably not going to make it past that. So, I don't. Plenty of people blame it on NIL, and that could be true. I think the interesting thing is Um, I think in the final four teams, the only ones with a 5-star on the roster was Duke, I believe. The others were 3 and 4 stars, which to me kind of points to lower level schools getting their players bought out, possibly, because some of these higher level programs are going to be recruiting 5-stars because, I mean, that's just what they are. But I feel like this year, I mean, Auburn has been good at basketball for a little bit. Florida, I'm not exactly sure as much, but Duke and Houston, especially Duke, that's why they have the 5-stars. I mean, they're a premier basketball school. But I mean, if we're looking at this, they're not the premier, like a Kentucky, a Kansas, which I mean, both those teams fell out pretty early. So that doesn't necessarily mean anything. But I guess just technically the blue bloods of college basketball, those were not as much in this except Duke. But still, I think those 3 and 4 stars kind of point to NIL being in play here. I'm not exactly sure where all these players came from, but I know there's a pretty big mix of different schools. So, I think we could be seeing a shift away from upsets because these teams can just now buy players and become really stacked. But I don't know that it's necessarily bad. It's going to be interesting to see where it goes. It's just it would suck if it does end up that way where there's no more upsets and it's kind of just chalk. Because nobody likes to see that. We want to see a 16 battle a 1 or whatever, We want to see stuff like that because that's what makes March Madness. That's what it's always been about. It's never been about the 1 seed paving a new road through all the way to the Final Four, just bulldozing teams. It's been about the upset and cheering for that. Like South Carolina last year, or not South Carolina, NC State last year. Sorry about that. Yeah, NC State last year with Burns. That was like super fun to watch. And we just didn't really have anything like that this year. The other thing I will say is these 1 seeds were like some of the 4 best teams in the history of college basketball. So that could be another kind of fluky part of this is like these were really good teams according to like offensive and defensive ratings, stuff like that. Like the Ken Palm stuff. That like they were very highly rated in that regard, so that could be part of it. But still, I just really hope that's not the way that this is going because I know that most people would agree that's why we tune in to watch March Madness is for the upsets. But overall, I'm happy about this outcome. I picked Florida. They won. I feel good about this bracket, and now it's on to next year. Can't wait. A year away in March where we can do this all over again and crown a new champion and see if somebody can finally get a perfect bracket. Probably won't happen, but hey, we can all dream. But yeah, guys, Florida wins the national championship 65-63 over Houston. Tough loss for Houston. But congratulations to the Gators. Well deserved. And thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment. Check out TikTok. It's greatly appreciated. I think this is like 3 videos in like a week now. So, sports are heating up. We got the NFL draft coming up soon. Obviously, NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs, baseball is just starting up. I mean, we are spoiled right now as sports fans. So stay tuned for more episodes to come. Like I said, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Have a great night.